All right, my name is Andrew Smith, and I own and operate Parsons Electric here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Um, I started off my career as an electrician when I was 19, about a year after I graduated from Winnicott. Uh, kind of went into the after high school world, not really knowing what to do, what I wanted to do, but I got a great opportunity with Parsons to start out to go to school while I worked to work towards a career. It's panned out pretty well. I've been with them for 18 years, and last year I purchased the company from the family. So there's definitely a future in it as long as you're willing to work the path and work, if you like it, first of all. But and with any trade, as long as you're willing to, put the time in, can be as beneficial as you want it to be. Um, like I said, right out of high school, friend's father offered me the position. Went to school up in Manchester at nights, which can be the toughest part probably of your apprenticeship because you got to work all day and then go to class for 3 hours, 2 days a week. But when you get through that, it's pretty gratifying to take that test, and then you become a journeyman electrician if you pass that test. Then you work a year under a master. From there, you can take a master's exam, which is one of the hardest tests in the state. The pass rate's very hard, so it's very gratifying when you do actually get it. And then you can, continue to work for a company as an employee, or you could go off on your own and do your own thing. Nice part about getting a license like that is as long as you continue to do your code updates, they can never take it away from you. So you could be in 10 years decide, electrical is not for me anymore, but I want to go do carpentry for a while, but you could still go back and, do electrical 5 years after that if you wanted to, as long as you kept up with that license. So that's, I don't know, kind of for me, I think it's a good point of pride when you have something like that. No one can take it away from you. You earned it. It's like a diploma from a college in a sense. So with apprenticeship as an electrician, you go for 4 years, 2,000 hours a year. You have to work. You go through the program. They do the schooling at night. Right now, a lot of kids do the schooling through Zoom, which might make it a little bit easier because you don't have to travel after work. The Hampton program wasn't around when I started, which would be nice for you Winnicott guys and girls. The schooling aspect of it's very nice because it teaches you about all the things that you're not going to learn in the field. The math, the codes, because when you're in the working world, you learn the codes and you put the codes to use, but you don't necessarily sit down with a book and read the language of it. And learning all that from a deeper perspective definitely gives you a better sense in the field when you finally see something and it clicks. So I think the school part's definitely beneficial for everybody, and it kind of teaches a little bit of discipline too, having to do that after work. It teaches you a good work ethic. I think that's one of the big things I think with any trade is being dedicated, dependable, to make sure people can count on you. One of my favorite aspects about being an electrical or electrician is every day you don't really know what you're going to get. My guys come in every morning. They don't know if they're going to be, putting in plugs and switches or, crawling in an attic or building the brand new house. So every day you kind of get tested a little bit, and it keeps things fresh and, keeps you interested in your job. It's not the same old thing every day. You get to meet a lot of people, meeting with customers and talking with customers is something that I personally like, making those connections, and, you're building trust with them and they continue to call you year after year. That's kind of what we strive for at our company is we want to, the first time you call us is the last time you're looking for an electrician. Not always that easy, but it is fun to work for. A couple other things, a big thing and at this day and age is the trades is something that for years people stopped getting into. So now, I'm 35 years old. I'm like in the middle road. I'm considered young in my field because there's just no one out there. A lot of my crew are 53 plus. Four of my guys. The other three guys are my age, mid 40s, and then we have a 22-year-old apprentice. So, there's a lot of room for growth, and being an electrician, plumber, HVAC technician. You guys kind of have it, not to say made, but you have a great opportunity to have an excellent career. And I can only see the demand for tradesmen moving forward to grow and grow. So it's definitely something worth getting into. Anything that anyone has any questions about, I'd be happy to answer.
Can you talk a little bit about, so I see that you do both residential and commercial. What are the differences and what percentage would you say is the majority of your business?
The majority of our business is residential, service work. We're mostly, I'd say we're about 65% service work, and then 35% is, new housing, larger projects. We do commercial maintenance, a lot for restaurants, such as like the Galley Hatch. They need a plug goes out on their line, or lights go out in the dining room. We do stuff like that. The difference between commercial and residential, obviously, is residential's housing, and commercial is, schools and hotels, strip malls, office buildings, things of that such. And it's two totally different worlds. I've kind of always thought that they should be two different licenses, because they're literally two totally different sets of materials. A lot of commercial is bending pipe and mounting boxes and mounting things to concrete, a lot of steel, plastic. And then residential is you're drilling holes in wood and you're running what they call Romex, which is the wiring that goes in residential houses. It's a lot more flexible, easier to use. Around here, where this is mostly a residential area, so that's why most of our business is residential. But you can get in with some of the larger companies up in the Manchester area that do a lot of the big schools, hotels, big restaurants, things like that. And they can be great companies to work for. A lot of them, though, are just, they're a larger aspect. So, you could be at a job for 7 months doing the same thing every day, or, in residential, it's, as I said before, it's kind of a different thing every day. You never really know what you're going to get into. One thing with residential, though, is we're a 24/7 company. So, there's some days you go home, you settle down, it's 5 o'clock, and you get that call that someone's main electrical service on their house is flickering, and the power company's out there and says the meter base has to get replaced, and you got to call an electrician. So you get the next 4 or 5 hours cut out for you to make sure that people can, be safe in their homes. With commercial, it's more set hours. Businesses are open from 9 to 5. So, there's not so much after hours work, but there's a lot more higher demand, because during the day, if something goes down at an office, you need to be able to drop what you're doing and go take care of it.
So Jesse has a question and wonders, how many times a day do you get called out to fix stuff?
In our company, we get called out quite a bit. we've got a pretty large client base here in Hampton. Parsons has been around for probably, I think it was 1958 is when the original owner started it. So a lot of people have been calling us for a lot of years, and we do a lot of service work. So I would say on average 3 to 4 times, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it tends to add up. They never tend to come when you want them to come. That's the one thing that's why they call it a trouble call. It's not always easy, and you kind of sometimes you go in there blind, so to speak. They call and say, half of this room stopped working, so you have to go there and determine where the power is and isn't, how the circuits run, what might be wrong, did anything specifically happen to cause this, might steer you in the right direction. So you never really know, and that's why I find it kind of cool when you get a trouble call. They can be a little bit of a nuisance, but at the same time, it's a good opportunity to learn and broaden your mind and become a better electrician every time.
Can you talk, so I know that did you go to Manchester Community College?
It was Manchester School of Technology.
Got it. Okay. So how much schooling, like I know it's a little bit new now with Hampton having their own school, but what would you recommend for students that are interested in becoming electricians? Should they go take some of the basic courses on their own? Should they look for a job to get sponsored as an apprentice right away and then take the apprentice courses?
I do think that the way that they're doing it now, where you can take the electrical 101 and kind of get some basic hand tool skills, and you almost can kind of get a feel, is this something that I'm going to want to commit to? Because any employer is going to want to know that when they hire you, they're going to hire someone that wants to do this and isn't going to come back in 2 months and say, I'm not cut out to do this. Because a lot of employers, including us, we pay for our apprentices to go to class. So the schooling's taken care of. So we want to know if we're going to continue to pay for this, we want to know that you're invested just as much as we are. So it's a good thing. And our apprentice had that class, and it was nice that he was able to come right in and contribute. Because when I started, granted, I knew how to swing a hammer and turn a screwdriver, but I didn't know much about electrical, period. And it was a tough learning curve. Luckily, I've got a lot of good guys that work with us that taught me things, but I think that's a very valuable asset to take that 1 year or 6 months, or I'm not sure how long the course.
It's actually we have a student doing it right now, and he's getting credit here at high school, at the school for it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's only actually 8 weeks.
Yeah, and I would recommend that to anyone that's interested in taking advantage of those courses, because the more you know going into the workforce, the better off you're going to be, the more valuable you're going to be.
Great. And can you talk, Jesse was wanting to know a little bit more about hourly pay, like at the different, rates as you go up?
Sure. So now a first year apprentice around here, you'd probably start around $18 an hour. And that would, in our company, we cover healthcare 100%. So none of that comes out of your paycheck. And it works its way up. Every year we tend to give dollar raises up to a certain point. And it's all kind of depends on the kind of work you put into it. The more money you're going to make. I would say an electrician, if he wanted to go work on his own and was a master electrician, could probably get anywhere from, take home wise, you could get anywhere from, $40 to $50 an hour, depending on how you structure your company. Like for example, we charge out each one of our master's electricians is $100 an hour. So, they don't make that, but there's a lot that goes into that with healthcare and, cost of running business, so to speak. So the bigger business you get, the more things cost. And, but I would say for you guys getting into the business, you'd be looking at, probably over the course of your apprenticeship to be making anywhere from 18 to 22, $23 an hour. Once you get a license, you're a lot more valuable. So, you probably get a 2 to 3, maybe even $4 an hour bump there. It all kind of depends, but this area in the Seacoast, it's a very affluent area. So there's a lot of, money in the Seacoast. The more inland you get, it's, the wages go down slightly. So we're certainly in a great spot here in the Seacoast.
You said that you started when you were 19. Do you wish that you started at 18 instead? Do you think that year would have changed anything?
It's a great question. I'm not sure if it would, because everything's panned out so well where I got the opportunity to buy the company. I don't know if I'd change anything because of the luck that I had, but yeah, I mean, that year that I took off, I can't say that I was the most, doing the right things. I was trying to, find myself a little bit. So it took a little bit of time, but yeah, I mean, I guess going back, if I could have started 1 year earlier, I'd certainly have a little bit more money in my pocket, I guess.
And is the journeyman, and so you were saying that 18 to start with an apprenticeship and like around 20 for a journeyman?
No, so basically, if you started off, say, year one, $18 an hour, by the time you got up to year 4, you'd probably be in the $22 to $23 range.
Okay.
And then once you got a license, you'd probably move up to 26, 27, and then move your way up every year, or, the more you can handle. It's kind of on the employee, but that's kind of the basis. But the more you want, the harder you work, the more you're going to get.
So
Okay,
just
thank
to
you.
go over it so that they can kind of understand. So you're recommending taking the basic electrical 101 if they can, and then you get a job, and then you're sponsored as an apprentice to go to school for those 4 years. You're going at night while you're working as the apprentice during the day. And you're starting off around $18 an hour as an apprentice with a job, going to school. And then once you complete those 4 years of working and schooling, then you can get your journeyman's.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
You have to take a test, the journeyman's test, which you have, I believe, up to 5 times to pass after your 4th year of apprenticeship. And then when you have your journeyman's, you have to work under a master for a year before you can take the master's test.
Did you pass your journeyman off one try?
The journeyman's I did. The master's took me twice. I failed by
And-
2 points. It was tough.
And how many tries do you get for the master?
The master, you can take, at the time when I did it, which was 7 years ago, it was 5 times, I believe. But if you have your journeyman's, you just have to work for somebody. You just can't go and pull a permit in the state of New Hampshire.
Okay, thank you.
Jesse's wondering about how long did it take you to complete all of your schooling? So it sounds like you went 4 years as a journeyman.
Yep.
And then as a master, you just have to do ongoing kind of continuing ed.
So every 3 years, you have to do what they call a code update. So you're always going to continually learn. Your apprenticeship lasts for 4 years. Then you're done with schooling. Then it's just on you learning in the field. So basically, if you want to look at it, it's about a 5-year road to be able to get a master's test. Once you have that master's card, every 3 years, every master has to take what they call a code update. And it's a 15-hour course where you have to go through all the new codes that have come out in great detail. And you have to do it every year on the year that the code is updated. So this year it's going to be 2022. So in 2022, every master electrician has to sit through that course. So it's an ongoing thing. And there's certainly a lot more to be learning right now with home automation and security systems with the cameras. It seems like every day there's something new someone's calling about that we haven't even gotten to learn about yet. So a lot to be learned, a lot to be gained on your end. And I think the more you know, the more valuable you are. It's an endless cycle, so to speak.
One of of the most often questions we get from students here at schools, how can they get in, how do they get a job as an apprentice? Do you have any insider tips? Do you have any recommendations of things that they should, besides taking the electrical 101, of things that they should do to prep to get an apprentice job?
The tough part about that is it's all about the demand of the companies that you're, I guess, applying for. If people aren't hiring or they're maxed out and they just can't fit anybody else in their crew, there's not too much you can do about that. That's why some of those bigger companies out in Manchester, can be good stepping stones. They're a good place to get in, and you can get some apprentice years with a company like that that can use the labor, a lot more than a smaller crew could, because you have to keep people busy, and they can keep people busy as more than like a 2-man or a 3-man crew could. So that's a good place to start. If you can get in with a smaller shop, great. I mean, that was the route I got. I got very lucky. I knew someone who was high up in the company. And sometimes, as they say, it's who you know, not what you know. But I've had kids come to us that have been in those big commercial jobs for 2 or 3 years, and they're ready to change, and they can come right in and produce. So you can pay them more money up front. And you're almost, ready to either go on your own if you were able to get your master's in a couple of years, or you stick with the company. Not everybody wants to run their own business. I can tell you right now, it is a lot more difficult than you might think it might be, especially keeping track of 7 or 8 guys. Some guys like to, start work at 7, you're home by 3:30, and you get to live your life and, play with the kids and do hobbies. And you can definitely have that kind of future with, being an electrician. You can almost make your own hours if you wanted to, if you work for yourself, which is kind of nice.
So is the reason that your apprentices make 17, 18 when they start because of your team being smaller?
I wouldn't say that. I would just say that's kind of the starting rate for other local electricians that we've talked to.
Okay.
It's kind of, they only make so much because they can only do so much. So we can only charge
Makes
out
sense.
so much money an hour to our clients. If you're going to be at a job, and you're just watching a master electrician, hook something up, you can't really, justify, to spend $60, for that kid to learn. So, it definitely, from a business standpoint, it costs money the first couple of years as an apprentice, for me, but it's good because I'm building somebody up that eventually is going to be valuable. So it's worth it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
What's the most worked on electrical product you get called in to fix?
Smoke detectors, number one, because they chirp and they always are going off at 3:00 in the morning. And most people wish they could do without them, but they can't. Problem with that is with a smoke detector, it's a, wired unit. We just hook them up. We can't change what's inside of them. But I'd say that light switches a lot because they get used a lot, so they break. The plugs in your kitchens and your bathrooms with the little buttons on them, the GFIs, those go out a lot. Outside lighting, circuit breakers getting old, things like that. I think in most people's houses, they don't realize how old something is or needs to be worked on until it's too late and you're calling up because something doesn't work. I think that's true for everything because I know I don't keep up with my plumbing, but yeah, I mean, it really does change. It's some weeks a lot of the GFI issues. Some weeks it's circuit breakers tripping. Now a code requirement is we have to install what they call an arc fault circuit breaker. It senses a sensitivity in the sine wave and is very sensitive to if you plug in a vacuum And in a lot of these new houses, they trip like crazy, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's just the product themselves. But I'd say that's probably the number one, would be that arc fault circuit breaker. It's just a lot of nuisance tripping, and people like to have things work, and those oftentimes trip. So
What do you do if there's something that you don't know how to fix? Like, what do you look at to get the information to know how to fix something?
you know, you kind of have to work your way through it. When you open something up and it's broken, and you know that it's getting the correct voltage sent to it from the circuit breaker, and that unit's not working, sometimes you have to look at the unit and go, the unit's bad. We have to replace the whole thing and start from scratch, because you can always go back to, if the voltage is there and it should be working, that equipment is now failed. You cannot, because if the power's right, it should work, and things fail. Mechanical things fail all the time, especially motors. And a lot of things now have just small circuit boards in them, and they go all the time. So you have to trust your knowledge that, if it's getting the power, it is something you can do about it. Now, there's a lot of bigger things in industrial work where the voltages are 480 and 600 volts. It's a little bit out of my expertise, but those things are, that's a very specialty type of electrical work. Some cool stuff. You'll learn about it in school. It's scary. That stuff is, not for the faint of heart, but if you're into it, you can learn some pretty cool stuff with that.
Have you ever had to go in and like refix an entire fuse box before?
Yep, we replace circuit breaker panels all the time. A lot of the cottages down at Hampton Beach, a lot of them have fuse boxes. And now when you sell a house, most insurance companies will not allow you to buy a house with a fuse panel. So we get a lot of calls to replace those. We do a lot of the service on the outside of the house, which is the meter base. Pretty much we replace the big wire coming down from the point of the house to the meter base, and then down into the panel and the electrical panel itself. Our company just did a big 12 unit condo in Hampton. That was an emergency. The wire burned up underground. So we had to call in the utility company to come disconnect, get an excavator in there, dig a new trench to put new pipe in the ground, and build an entire service over the course of 3 days. And the condo was down for 2 of it. So sometimes those jobs come out of nowhere. That's kind of one of those things with the trouble call. We replace a lot of that big metering equipment. But yeah, the fuse panels are definitely something we replace a lot of too.
When you were done with your apprenticeship, did you feel like you mostly knew, like, were you confident out on the field by then?
I was more so confident in the code book and the general math knowledge. I think at that time, you're just starting to break in your skills in the field, because you're proving that you know more. So your employer and employees that you work with are starting to give you a little bit more. I'd say it probably took a good 7 or 8 years for me to start feeling really in my own skin. And honestly, it took my boss handing me the keys and a couple of work slips and saying, here, go do these jobs. And these are the materials you need, and, kind of figure it out. And, it's a little scary, but once you get a couple of them done, you realize, well, this isn't so bad. And you just keep going. And, before you know it, I was running, huge housing projects and, $3-4 million homes on the beach. And it's a little daunting, but at the end of the day, I like going back and driving by those houses, and, a sense of pride when you see that stuff.
Also, when you had your apprenticeship, was it a lot of hands-on when you were there, or was it more just like sitting back and watching?
In the classroom, we didn't work with our hands at all. When I was going to school at night, it was strictly in the book. When I was working during the day, I was very much hands-on. We were doing a lot of brand new houses at the time. So I was in the thick of it, running wire, stapling wires. That's something that any apprentice should learn to master. You'd be worth your weight in gold if you can run Romex in a house and make it nice and neat and staple it. You can come work for me any day. And that's something that, again, if you keep your head down for those 4 or 5 years when you're an apprentice, learn everything you can, be a sponge. It's only going to make you invaluable as soon as you get a license to just, I mean, you can almost call your own shots.
So I can ask a question, I guess, if the students don't have any more questions. So you said your day is pretty varied, right? And you're always kind of moving. How much time would you say you spend outside versus inside? And, I'm just trying to help the students get a sense of whether their personality is a right fit for a career as an electrician.
Sure. That can vary a lot as well. It's funny. It seems like we're always outside a lot in the winter, and then usually we're doing a lot of attic work in the summer for whatever reason. It's just how it works. But no, I mean, you try to spend as little time as possible outside when the weather's bad. Some days you just got to tough it out because, there's a problem on the outside of someone's house and you got to get it done. There's the times when you have a brand new house and it's ready for us to come in and wire, and it's the middle of February and you got to go in there and, work fast so your blood pumping and keeping you warm. But yeah, I'd say, I mean, if you're into working with your hands and being challenged, I'd say that's where electrical is kind of cool. That's what let me find it, great for myself. Was I like to keep my mind busy and my hands busy. And electrical, it's, a lot of little wires, a lot of figuring out voltage and switches, and a lot of measuring, a lot of, just a lot of stuff like that. So you're constantly moving, before you know it, 8 hours goes by, you'd think the day just started and you're done. I think if you're into like hard work and, having a responsibility, I guess, to, making sure when you're done touching something, it was done the right way, that it could be there for 50 years and still work. That's kind of something that might be worth it for you. If you take pride in things like that, you'll definitely love being an electrician.
So we were talking about this earlier. Was it the Hampton School that has the classes that you were saying that we should probably start?
I believe they do. I got a call from a couple of kids over the summer that said they were enrolled in the Apprentice 101 program, and they were looking for work. At the time, we couldn't put them to work, but that's changed. But I believe they do offer that course.
Okay, thank you.
Cam, where do you live?
Newington.
Okay, so you're fairly close to you can access the Hampton School.
Yeah.
Okay. So next week we are next Tuesday is the 24th at 1:30. We have a session with the Hampton Trade School themselves. They're going to come in and talk about their programming. So that might be something you want to come back for and listen to, so you can get a sense from them and ask them particular questions about their electrical courses and those pathways, but they'll certainly talk about the other trades that they offer as well.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think I sent you that link, Pam, right? You have that?
Yeah, I do.
Great. Looks like So another question that came in, if we went to a different school like a union, could we still get an apprenticeship?
I'm not too familiar with union type work. I'm not sure how many unions there are in New Hampshire. I think that's more of like a Massachusetts thing, but I couldn't see why not. I mean, I think the hours have to be fulfilled, no matter what, as an apprentice. They might have a different curriculum, but I think I remember hearing kids talk about, hours of the union, they can put them towards the apprenticeship. So um, that's about the furthest my knowledge goes on that.
Yeah, it looks like a family member is a carpenter and told them to go that route, that might be a good option.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. So I had to step away for a moment, and I wondered if you got a chance to talk a little bit about maybe some of the most challenging aspects of your. I know you talked about some of the good things about it being different every day, and the sense of satisfaction you get when you fix something. But what's the most challenging component?
The most challenging component is, and I think Cam kind of brought this up a little bit earlier, is, what do you do when you don't know how to fix it, kind of thing. And you're there to fix it. The customers called you, hired you to figure this out. And, you can spend a lot of time pulling your hair and chasing your tail, especially when it comes to electrical. There's a lot of wires in a house. So you have to track things down. You got to be diligent. And at the end of the day, you got to just trust that you know what you're doing, and you're going to get it. But sometimes a trouble call could take 20 minutes, and sometimes it could take 4 hours, and you find out, there was one loose wire nut in the first plug you checked, but you didn't check it good enough. I'd say that's the most challenging thing. That, and when you get the call after work, that's a challenge. I know it is for my employees. When you get that pager that goes off, and you gotta suck it up and go out there, and you kind of owe it to your customers to be dependable and get the job done when they need you.
It looks like there's another question. Have you ever had to redo the entire electrical system in a house?
Yes, we have. Typically that happens when the house is going to get renovated. It's an older house. And there's, the insulation's not good in the outside walls, and they're going to be doing some remodeling. So basically they strip the house down to the bare studs, and, we rip out all the old wiring and bring all the new wiring up to current codes. We do it a lot. There's a type of wiring called knob and tube, which was popular probably in the 30s and 40s, that now needs to be again, for selling a house. If knob and tube is found, it has to get eliminated. So you have to do a lot of fishing in walls, and carefully drilling of holes and working through holes and things like that. I think that's the kind of a fun aspect of being an electrician. Is you kind of can be, create a little bit of magic with a snake in a wall, and poof, all of a sudden, you were able to get through something you never thought you could. And it's very rewarding.
I know Claire has to leave us in a few seconds, but before she goes, I wanted to ask on her behalf. I suspect that there's not a lot of women in the electrical trade, but maybe I'm wrong. What advice would you give a young woman who's interested in the trades in general, but being an electrician in particular?
I would say if it's something that interests you, is to definitely pursue it, and don't be afraid of, job sites and things like that. I would say that to any one of you. Job sites can be intimidating. There's electricians are not always looked upon as the tough guys. A lot of the trades think that the electricians are the pretty boys who always get to sit inside in the heat. And but don't be afraid of anything like that. To anyone, girls, if you like it, there's no reason you shouldn't do it. It's like any other job. And I hope that answers that question.